Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Regional Planning Committee meeting for October the 2nd, 2020. And I hope everybody's staying cool, safe, and healthy. So let's start with a Pledge of Allegiance. If Councilwoman Christine Alessio will lead us in the pledge.
I'd be glad to do so. Please join with me. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to remind everybody of our process for both member and public comments. The committee members will be using their cameras and we will take live public comments. Members are asked to turn off their cameras when they have a comment or question or turn on their cameras, and then I will recognize you. So apparently they want us to turn off our cameras when we're not wanting to speak and then turn them on when you want to speak so I can recognize you. If you are a member of the public and would like to speak on an item, please use the raise hand icon in the Zoom toolbar and unmute yourself when you are called upon. Please remember to mute yourself after your comments. If you are calling into the meeting, please press 9 on your phone if you would like to comment on an item. All comments, whether they are emailed or live, will be made of today's meeting record. Okay, so with that, we'll go on to the first item, which is the approval of the meeting minutes. And we will start off with the approval of the minutes for our March 6th, 2020 minutes and the July 17th, 2020 Joint Transportation, Regional Planning, and Borders Committee meeting, and of the minutes of August the 7th, 2020, Joint Transportation, Regional Planning, and Borders Committee meeting. So do I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Okay, I hope that's Christina Alessio.
It is.
Okay, thank you very much. And then Councilmember Dwight, was that you?
Yes, quick comment. I was not on the Regional Planning Committee for the March minutes, so I will abstain from those, and I'm a yes on the rest, and I will second the motion if I can.
Okay, and so with Dwight not participating in the March 2nd approval, is that okay, or the March 6th approval? Do we have a problem with that? Can staff help me with that?
Could someone from the legal team weigh in on this for me? Either Samantha or John, I see you're both on. I'm not sure if we need to call a roll separately then.
Hello, Chair. This is Samantha Folk. I'm with the Office of General Counsel. We can pull the minutes, the March minutes from the other two items and take two separate votes. That would be fine.
Okay, thank you. And will we have 3 people on the call? I can't see who's participating. I can if I push the participant. So do we have, if Dwight is not there, do we have another? Oh yeah, Councilmember Ward is here. Okay, all right. So so then we're pulling the March 2nd minutes and then just voting on the July 17th and August the 7th. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, anyone oppose?
Okay. Chair, I believe that I have to call a roll call vote to
Oh,
approve.
okay, that makes sense because I can't tell who's voting.
Great. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started on that. And just for the record, again, this is for the July 17th and August 7th meetings first. For the City of San Diego, Councilmember Ward. I'll come back for Councilmember Ward. For the County of San Diego, Supervisor Gaspar. I believe the supervisor may be absent, so I'll move on there as well. For East County, Vice Chair Alessio.
Yes.
Thank you. For North County Coastal, Councilmember Warden.
Yes.
Thank you. For North County Inland, Mayor Jones.
Yes.
And for South County, Chair Salas?
Salas, yes.
And this is Chris
And-
Ward. Yes.
Thank you very much, Council Member.
Okay, so the motion passes.
Sorry, the motion does pass with one absence.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will move approval of the March 6th, 2010 meetings. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, no, you're doing roll call. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'll do the roll call. Thank you. I'm sorry, who was that did the second? Was that
Councilwoman
Vice Chair?
Alicio. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, and for the City of San Diego, Councilmember Ward? We may be having some mic issues there. I'll come back for you, Councilmember Ward. For the County of San Diego, I have Supervisor Gaspar is absent. For East County, Vice Chair Alessio.
Yes.
Thank you. For North County Coastal, Councilmember Warden.
Abstain.
Thank you. For North County Inland, Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Thank you. And for South County, Mayor Salas.
Salas, yes.
Thank you very much. And I'll go
Ward,
back.
yes, sorry.
Thank you, Councilmember Ward. Great. So that item does pass with one absence and one abstention.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll go on to public comments. Do we have any members of the public that have submitted comments to us under public comments? And we will allow a certain amount of time for them to weigh in at this moment.
Chair Salas, I don't see any hands raised, but I did want to note that if the public would like to raise their hand to speak and they're calling in, it's actually *9 that they need to press. So if we could just give people a moment or two in case they need to do that.
Okay.
I don't see any hands raised, so I think we can go ahead and move on.
Okay, thank you. With that, so we had no public comments. Are there any committee members that want to have any comments this morning or this afternoon? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to item number 3, which is the executive director's report, here to provide an update on key programs, projects, and agency initiatives. On behalf of the executive director is Ray Trainer, the Chief Planning and Innovation Officer for Sandag. And thank you, Ray, take it away.
Good afternoon, Chair Salas. Thank you so much, members of the Regional Planning Committee. This morning, Sandag and your North County Transit District met with the California Transportation Commission Chair, Hillary Norton, where they conducted a tour of the work that we're doing to stabilize the Del Mar Bluffs. The tour included Executive Director Hassan Estrada, along with our NCTD Executive Director, Matt Tucker. After the tour, Hassan was joined by County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher at the new VA trolley station on the Mid-Coast line, where they briefed the CTC chair on the remarkable progress that we're making on the Mid-Coast Light Rail, your biggest infrastructure project ever undertaken in the San Diego region. Later, in fact, this afternoon, Chair Norton's going to be visiting with the MTS, where she's going to be there to help dedicate the new Mid-Coast trolleys that were delivered to MTS earlier this week. And then the tour today will be concluded with a Vision Lab presentation where the CTC chair will receive some conversation with Hassan and members of our planning department to talk about the regional vision. Many of you may have received some correspondence from members of the Valley Center community. I just wanted to give you an update regarding the Rancho Lilac property that Caltrans had acquired as a part of the environmental mitigation program. I wanted to let you know that our staff have been working both with the County of San Diego and members of the community, and the plan is to conduct a virtual workshop on Thursday, October 15th. And the whole idea is to try to get community input into the work that's been going on as Sandag's been negotiating the work for the maintenance of that parcel over in Valley Center. And then the intent is to bring the conversation back to the Board of Directors on October 25th where staff will then prepare a recommendation on providing public access and making sure that that would be protected public access over the entire site, at the same time working to preserve all the unique attributes of this environmental mitigation property. Back to the bluffs for just a moment. Work has been underway now on the stabilization project known as Phase 4, the Del Mar Bluffs. We also are working on the stabilization projects 5 and 6, which are currently in design. And then what we just did was work to submit a grant proposal to the state as a part of the SB1 program. It's the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. And if we're successful with the grant award, then we'll only need about $13.5 million to be able to completely fund this critical safety stabilization work. So we're really hopeful that over the course of the next couple of months, we'll hear some positive results from our application submitted to the state. Moving down toward the south part of the county, Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project continues. We're in construction there on the connectors to the State Route 11 and State Route 905, and these are providing connectors from the southbound 125. We're also working very closely both with Caltrans and with the partners in Mexico to continue to work the development of the port of entry. And we're just about ready to embark on two really important studies. One is a traffic study, and then related to that is going to be a traffic and revenue study. And so these are really important milestone projects that will be kicking off shortly. Also next week, the director of Caltrans, Tak Samashakan, is going to be visiting with us and taking a tour of the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry. This week, we had some really great news. Governor Newsom signed Assembly Bill 2731, and that's our CEQA streamlining legislation for the Navwar Central Mobility Hub project. And so Assemblymember Todd Gloria had invited Hassan earlier in the week to be part of a press conference to be able to announce this really significant achievement. Work on that project is continuing with the partners, City of San Diego, the Port of San Diego, the Airport Authority, really trying to develop a long-term solution to this challenge of being able to provide regional connectivity to our most important airport in the region. Work is also continuing working with the Navy to their plans to revitalize the Old Town campus, and that's one of those sites that's being considered for the Central Mobility Hub. With respect to your 2021 regional plan, our staff continue to work now on the modeling of that vision and working to translate the vision into a plan, and we plan to come back later in the winter with some of the modeling results. Yesterday, actually, a group of the planning staff went up to the North County Transit District where they met with the NCTD Board of Directors and conducted a briefing on the vision and also responded to a number of questions and concerns that were raised by the NCTD Board and had a really good conversation. And on October 15th, we plan to do the same thing with the board at the MTS. Chair Salas, that concludes my report, and I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. And actually, I was at the MTS dedication of the new trolleys where I saw our director, Hassan, and met the Transportation Commission chair. And she was very, very impressed with all the work that we were doing relative to the Mid-Coast trolley. And so I think it was a very good thing that she happened to be visiting us on the very same day that we were dedicating those new trolley cars. So we should allow a bit of time for any public comments on this particular report from Mr. Trainer. Francesca, did we receive any requests for comments during the report?
No, Chair Salas, I don't see any hands raised from the public.
Okay. Do any of the board members have any questions about, committee members have any questions about the report? Okay, thank you. So with that, we'll move on to the
Alice,
yes.
I'm sorry, I did have a question. Thanks for the report, Ray. Can you tell us how much is the SB1 grant application and how are you feeling about it? Are we looking good or not?
Very good, Mr. Warden, and I believe that the proposal, and I'll look to see if Jim Linthicum is on to be able to confirm, but I think we're proposing somewhere in the area of around $80 million on that grant application, but I'll look to Jim to confirm that.
Yes, thanks, Ray. The total grant is about that number, but that goes to a number of projects, and the SB1 for the Bluffs is 35. But that combined with other source of funds, we're only about $14 million short from getting all the money we need for Bluffs 5 and Bluff 6.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now moving on to the rest of the agenda. The first two items are on consent. Is there any request from members of the committee or the public to pull any of the consent items?
Chair, I do not see any hands raised from the public.
Okay, so let's see with that. Let's see, does anybody want to make a motion on the consent calendar?
Chair Salas, since these are information items, we don't need to
that's
vote
right.
on them.
That's correct. I'm sorry. All right. So let's see. And we don't have any questions or comments on the consent. So let's see. We are going on to item number 5. No, item 6. Okay. So item 6 is a climate resilience program update. And let's see. Our next item is an update of the Sandag Climate Resilience Program, which supports the development and implementation of the regional plan through the climate mitigation and adaptation activities. And here to give us that report is Katie Henrich. Where are you, Katie? Welcome.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Loud and clear, Katie.
Awesome. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Katie Henrich. I'm an associate regional planner here at Sandag, and I will be presenting on our climate resilience program, providing an update on activities since the last time we presented to the Regional Planning Committee, which was in March of this year. Next slide, please. So for those unfamiliar, the Climate Resilience Program is helping to mitigate and adapt to climate change impacts in the region while supporting the state's aggressive climate goals. During my presentation, I'll first discuss our climate action efforts with focus on the recently completed Climate Action Data Portal. I'll then describe our climate adaptation efforts, and I'll conclude with next steps. Next slide, please. Thank you. For climate action, Sandag provides climate planning and energy efficiency technical assistance to its member agencies through the Roadmap program. To date, we've provided customized climate planning support to 11 jurisdictions. The Roadmap program partially supported the preparation of the Regional Climate Action Planning Framework, or RECAP. RECAP is used as guidance for regional consistency through the steps of the climate action planning process, including methodology, data sources, and other best practices, while also preserving local policy flexibility. Sandag also prepares RECAP snapshots for its member agencies every 2 years to help jurisdictions monitor greenhouse gas emissions and climate action plan implementation over time. The second edition of these snapshots will be completed by the end of this year. To house this data online, staff recently launched the Climate Action Data Portal, which I will go into more detail on next. Staff is currently preparing a series of climate change solutions reports, which will identify current efforts, best practices, and future considerations to reduce climate change impacts. Sandag also received funding to run a tool called TerraCount, which models greenhouse gas and natural resource implications of different development patterns. Both of these efforts will inform the 2021 regional plan and other Sandag strategic initiatives. To continue and expand our program and member agency services, a request for proposal was released this summer to support the Climate Resilience Program. The scope of work includes continuing climate action monitoring and reporting, supporting development and implementation of climate resilience-related policies and programs in the 2021 Regional Plan, and assisting local jurisdictions in climate action plan implementation and adaptation planning. A contract is anticipated to be signed by the end of the calendar year. Next slide, please. The Climate Action Data Portal is a recently completed effort funded by a Caltrans Sustainable Communities grant. Sandag partnered with HNTB and the Energy Policy Initiative Center, or EPIC, at the University of San Diego to develop the site. The purpose of the site is to provide easily accessible, best available data to assist local jurisdictions in climate action planning and reporting. The site utilizes methods and best practices established in RECAP, such as those for preparing greenhouse gas inventories and monitoring climate efforts. The site incorporates the greenhouse gas inventory and climate monitoring data included in the RECAP snapshots into a more visual and on-demand format to supplement a local jurisdiction's climate monitoring needs. Staff is planning to update the site annually with any newly available data. And while the focus of the site is currently on climate mitigation data, additional data sets such as adaptation or equity data could be incorporated in the future. I'm going to transition to a demo of this site, but before I do, I want to highlight that a longer, more detailed demo is available on our YouTube channel, and a link to that demo is included both on our Sandag Climate Project's website and in the data portal itself, if you're interested in taking a look after this meeting. So with that, I will very seamlessly transition to our demo. Right. Can everyone see a website?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so here we are on the landing page for the Climate Action Data Portal. And if you're navigating to this site on your own, you may have to fiddle around with the zoom a bit because some things may appear a lot larger or a little more squished. So that's up to your own monitor and zoom capabilities. But this landing page includes a description on this left-hand side of what the data portal is. There's some information about what data is included, how to use the site. Again, that link to the demo is available. But the primary function of this home tab is to access vehicle miles traveled data. So if you were coming to the site and wanted to get VMT data, you could click on your jurisdiction. I'll just use La Mesa as an example for today. And once you click on a jurisdiction, you can see it kind of jumps you to the city. And this window pops up here with the different VMT data. So since this is the Climate Action Data Portal, the primary tab is this CAP VMT. So the VMT that goes into the climate action plans of your jurisdictions with details about what that's made up of. This is using Series 14 VMT. And then you can click through and see some of the other types of VMT. So this is the total origin destination VMT. And then you can also select regional VMT, which if you're able to see, minimize some of these, it overlays a jurisdiction's contribution to regional VMT. And also available on this home tab, some of you may be aware that Sandag also has a VMT mapping tool focused on SB 743 VMT, and that's available through this link here. So once you've looked at your VMT data, you can then click this button here, which just takes you to this next tab. And this tab has all of the data included in those RECAP snapshots that I mentioned earlier. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that it loads. All right, there we go. So this tab takes you to this kind of blank page, explains what's included in this page, what type of climate data. But if you are wanting to look at your greenhouse gas inventory or climate monitoring data, again, what was included in the recap snapshots, you'll just select your jurisdiction. I'll just stay with La Mesa for now. You select the data year, and then it populates here on the screen. And once this loads, you will see a greenhouse gas inventory pie chart. But you can see it's broken out by each of the different categories. It uses the same images that are used in the recap snapshot report itself. You're able to download that here as well. I won't click on it since my internet's being a little slow. But the other thing you're able to do is download all of the data to CSV by data year. And you can do that. I'll just click on another year to show you. You're able to do that for whichever data year you're interested in. And you can see there are fewer boxes, fewer things populated on this 2017 year. As we continue to gather more data, these different year tabs should populate more. But currently 2016 is the most complete data year that we have. Ah, there's the inventory popping up for me. And this is actually another thing that you're able to download as well if you just want to get a PDF of that for a presentation or something. So maybe my favorite part of the site is the Graph Activities tab. So this tab takes all of this data included in the recap snapshots by jurisdiction and allows users to visualize any trends that have developed. So again, right now we only have, maybe 3 years of data at most. So the trends are, they're developing, but you can imagine that once we continue to update the site every year with new data, the trends are going to be really, really fun to look at. So again, I'll stick with La Mesa. You can see that the different categories that you can graph pop up in the side here. So let's just do municipal operations. We'll just randomly click that and this chart pops up. And you can do that with any of the categories that you're interested in. And again, you can see this little yellow button here on the side. This means you can download this graph in a variety of file formats if you want to put it in a PowerPoint or however you want to use it. So yeah, probably my favorite tab. This next tab is FAQ, a little more straightforward. It has frequently asked questions about the site, how it was developed, the type of data that's included, how often we're going to update it. All of the different questions that we have in here right now are all at the top. So if you just want to read one of them, you can click, it'll jump you to the answer. You won't have to waste any time scrolling around. And then this last tab is the glossary. We use a lot of acronyms in the climate world, and we know that not everybody knows what all of those mean. So handy dandy glossary available at the end, which, there we go, to help define the different terms that we use. So that is my demo, and I will now transition back seamlessly to slides. Oops. Sorry about that. Getting organized here. Okay, so Sandag is growing its adaptation planning efforts to ensure the region is more resilient to the impacts of climate change. Since 1996, Sandag has been coordinating regional shoreline monitoring efforts through beach nourishment and habitat preservation. Since then, Sandag has received 3 Caltrans Senate Bill 1 adaptation planning grants to expand its adaptation planning beyond beach nourishment and explore multiple climate impacts. First, the Regional Transportation Infrastructure Sea Level Rise Assessment and Adaptation Guidance, accepted by the board this May, analyzes potential sea level rise impacts to regional transportation facilities. Second, the Regional Adaptation Needs Assessment increases understanding of adaptation planning needs and opportunities. Building upon these efforts is a third project recently underway, which will provide tangible guidance on how to address the identified adaptation risks and needs from the first two grant efforts by implementing projects that holistically link mitigation, adaptation, and broader community benefits. Additionally, Sandag recently received funding from the Office of Economic Adjustment for Sandag and the Navy to support implementation and collaboration on regional resilience initiatives for the military throughout the San Diego region, as well as the Central Mobility Hub. Next slide, please. Since 2010, the Climate Resilience Program has largely been funded through a local government partnership with San Diego Gas and Electric. All local government partnerships throughout California are sunsetting at the end of 2020. As the work program has expanded, we've been able to supplement with grant opportunities as they become available. The Climate Resilience Program is different from other Sandag program areas in that it is largely externally funded from a variety of funding sources. With the local government partnership ending, staff continues to look for consistent funding sources to sustain the work program over the long term and to continue providing a breadth of services to our member agencies and supporting your staff. State and federal grant opportunities have proven valuable to sustaining and growing the Climate Resilience Program, and many of the efforts described previously were either fully or partially funded by grant opportunities. For example, the Climate Resilience Services request for proposal process I described earlier is supported through Caltrans funding. While the Caltrans funding has been critical to the procurement process, it will not support the full 5-year term of the procurement. Another short-term solution is an Ocean Protection Council grant, for which a letter of support was submitted to develop a regional beach sand replenishment study to evaluate the ability of nature-based solutions to mitigate impacts from sea level rise and inundation. Next slide, please. For next steps, staff continues to provide member agencies with technical support and to pursue funding to support the Climate Resilience Program. Other next steps include finalizing the procurement process for the Climate Resilience Program services and supporting Sandag's priority projects and strategic initiatives, including development and implementation of the regional plan and the comprehensive multimodal corridor plans. Next slide, yeah. So that is my presentation. I am available for any questions. My contact information is on the slide, and that is a link to the climate page of Sandag's website. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. That was really interesting, and what a great tool for all of us. Francesca, do we have any public comments on this item?
No, Chair, I don't see any hands raised on this item.
Okay, do any of the committee members have any questions or comments?
Yes, I do, Chair, if it's appropriate. Dwight Worden from Del Mar. On the data portal, Katie, wow, that's really cool and powerful. Give me an example. How would a city use that? Is it intended to be used for creating climate action plans and monitoring and updating them? Or is it also intended to be used when a city is reviewing a development application? And is it both? I see you nodding.
Just nodding along. Yeah, I would say that the primary intent of the site is for local jurisdictional staff to monitor their climate action plans, or if you're doing a climate action plan update, to use the site for those sorts of tools. It also makes it so that you're able to access that greenhouse gas inventory data that we provide in the recap snapshots on demand instead of waiting for me to email them to you. So that's a little more convenient. And all of it is publicly available data as well. So members of the public are able to use the site. But yes, I would say more the former of the example that we gave.
Okay, one more question. Does it dovetail into the sustainable community strategy and the overall Sandag planning so that if we're updating something, we can know, are we lining up with the Sandag goals or not?
Another thing I should have mentioned, thank you for that question, is that we will be preparing a regional snapshot as well. So it wasn't in the site quite yet, but that's something that we want to include once our regional inventory is complete. And then as we continue to update the site, that'll be something that everyone will be able to look at and see how the region is doing versus local jurisdictions. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I think it does. Thank you. I have one more that's maybe more of a comment than a question, and it has to do with the shoreline stuff. Recently, through Congressman Levin's office working on the Low Sand Rail Task Force, he was able to get an extension of the Army Corps of Engineers feasibility study for sand replenishment from Solana Beach all the way up to San Clemente, and to extend it down through Del Mar. So in the rail end of things, we're hoping to look at that as one way to help protect the bluffs for the long term. And I'm just curious to know, is that dovetailed with the work that's been going on by Sandag? Are you aware of that and fitting it in?
I would need to double check with my shoreline counterpart on that for an exact answer, but I can probably have her reply via chat.
No worries.
During this meeting.
No worries. I'm on the shoreline, so I'll just ask her. I thought you might know. All right. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Any more questions or comments for Katie? So that was an informational item. So for the next item, item number 7, I'm going to ask Vice Chair Alicio to introduce that. Christine?
Thank you. Yes, number 7, we are actually a request to recommend that the Sandag Board of Directors, starting with us, approve the proposed Transnet Environmental Mitigation Program 2022 work plan for the regional land management monitoring and allocate $4 million in funding for fiscal year 2021. The Environmental Mitigation Program Working Group, of which I'm the chair, and I love this group of people, and I love Kim Smith, and this is a wonderful thing. Reviewed the item on September 8th and unanimously recommended approval. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Ms. Smith so she can tell you more about what this wonderful working group at Sandag has been doing and what we're going to do with the money.
Wow, thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, Chair Salas and members of the Regional Planning Committee. My name is Kim Smith and I am the Program Manager for the Environmental Mitigation Program here at Sandag. Item 7 on your agenda is related to actions necessary to implement the Environmental Mitigation Program in fiscal year 21-22. Next slide, please. So just as a reminder, I always like to start out with this slide. Just to remind everyone that the Transnet Environmental Mitigation Program provides funding to mitigate habitat impacts from regional and local transportation projects, and also funding for regional land management and biological monitoring. It does this by acquiring and managing large tracts of lands with native habitat early in advance of those transportation projects that need mitigation. And this has really allowed the program to reduce cost, accelerate the delivery of those transportation projects, implement our regional habitat conservation plans, and reduce the listing of species as threatened or endangered. Next slide, please. So today's request focuses on the Habitat Conservation Fund. This is the funding for regional land management and biological monitoring provisions of the EMP. To implement the EMP, the Sandag Board of Directors entered into an MOA with Caltrans, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The MOA was originally signed in 2008 and renewed in 2019, and it outlines the implementation strategy of the EMP. The MOA includes the allocation of $4 million per year for 20 years to assist in funding the gaps in regional land management and biological monitoring to help maintain our regional preserve system. It is really a safety net to protect our Transnet investments and help eliminate the need for future listing of endangered species. Staff, with the assistance from the EMP Working Group, developed the 2-year work plan that identifies those key tasks and milestones. Per the MOA, annual funding for each fiscal year totaling $4 million is then reviewed and approved by the Sandag Board. The work is then implemented through consultant contracts and land management grants. For example, the picture on the top depicts the golden eagle. Sandag has been working with the United States Geological Survey to collect data on eagle movement, foraging, and nesting to better understand potential impacts to these species on conserved lands and to inform future management. In addition, roughly half of the $4 million allocated annually has been used for our very successful land management grant program. To date, we have completed 9 cycles of this grant program. The bottom photo depicts 2 federally endangered least tern chicks. The Port of San Diego and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service were able to use grant funding to support site preparation, management and monitoring, and predator control at the D Street Fill site in Chula Vista for the 2019 and 2020 least tern nesting season. Today's recommendation before you also includes funding to move forward with our 10th cycle in the spring of 2021. Next slide, please. So what is the 2-year work plan? The 2-year work plan implements the goals and objectives of the management strategic plan, which is shown above. In 2014, staff worked with its consultants to develop the management strategic plan, or MSP. It is a technical document that provides recommendations for species. Priorities are based on species endangerment, habitat types, threats, and opportunities. It develops regional objectives for efficient and effective use of regional management and monitoring funding. Staff worked with the EMP working group to take these technical recommendations from the MSP and develop them into a work plan for fiscal year 21-22. The work plan, which is shown in attachment 1, pages 57 to 66 of your report, defines those goals and milestones proposed for completion. The work plan also tracks and monitors those implementation actions in order to measure success. Next slide, please. Attachment 2, page 67 of your report, depicts specific recommendations for the allocation of fiscal year 21 funding for regional management and monitoring, split between the 4 strategic goals described above: habitat restoration, wildlife movement, regional collaboration, and sensitive species. Examples of key milestones Sandag will be working on for each goal include: for sensitive species, the photo on the bottom right shows the Hermes copper butterfly, whose population is in steep decline in San Diego County due to wildfire and drought. Sandag has been working with partners, including the United States Forest Service, to develop and implement a monitoring plan that will track the long-term status, habitats, and threats to the species in order to avoid listing. Habitat restoration. The photo on the top left shows the San Elijo Lagoon. The goal of this restoration project was to improve tidal circulation, water quality, and habitat for the federally endangered Ridgeways rail. This lagoon restoration is also mitigation for the larger I-5 North Coast Corridor project, which includes both improvements to the rail and highway. Restoration of the lagoon was completed earlier this month with long-term monitoring beginning in October. Wildlife movement. The mountain lion. So just this last spring, the Southern California population of the mountain lion was considered for listing as a threatened species. This next fiscal year, Sandag will continue to work with partners to monitor the status of movement of mountain lions. Results of these studies will help inform the development of linkage improvement plans in prioritized locations like the I-15 to help improve connectivity for mountain lions across the region. And finally, regional collaboration, and the project I think I'm most excited about. Sandag has been working with the EMP working group and its regional partners to take all of this data that you've heard in this presentation that's been collected since the inception of the program and develop metrics to measure the overall health of our preserve system. The results will be provided in a report and communicated to the board, committees, stakeholders, and the public in 2021. Pending the Regional Planning Committee recommendation and Board of Directors approval, the proposed management and monitoring fiscal year 21-22 work plan would be implemented through fiscal year 21. Implementation would help eliminate future listing and propose recovery of endangered species by providing biological monitoring and land management to proactively address the decline of endangered species and their habitats. Next slide, please. Therefore, today, the Regional Planning Committee is asked to recommend that the Board of Directors approve the proposed fiscal year 21-22 EMP work plan for regional land management and biological monitoring and allocate $4 million in funding for fiscal year 2021. That concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions or comments you may have.
You're muted, Mary.
Okay. Okay, I was saying, thank you very much, Kim. That was a good report. Francisca, before we go to questions or comments from the board members, do we have any members of the public that want to speak on this item?
My name's Eric. I got a quick comment on that. I thank you for that presentation. I think it was a very good one. I think that for future projects in San Diego County, along with the environmental excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. Mitigation, you need to have some Native American mitigation for the sites that will be spotted when you guys do work in the future through all Southern California. I think that needs to be put on the through the I don't know if this is the right forum to say this, but I think it needs to be said that I think that as a Native American person and all this growth in Southern California, along with environmental, it's got to have some Native American cultural and monitors on projects that from this day out forward, instead of doing a project and finding something after the fact. It's good to get ahead of it and then move forward with that. With that being said, I do appreciate your presentation. I think it was a very well done, and thank you again for that, for letting me speak.
Okay, thank you. Kim, is there any response to the gentleman?
Yeah, I mean, I know for most of our transportation projects, as far as cultural resources, we're required to have Native American monitors as part of, CEQA and NEPA. And I do agree with you. It's part of our environmental mitigation project. We do have some of these larger lagoon restoration projects where we have worked with the tribes to incorporate the Native American monitoring in those. So thank you.
That's good. And I think, as a native in Southern California, we do have a board. I brought this up before with you folks at the KDLC that overlooks property that we just that's given to us through mitigation programs, stuff like that we look over. We just keep it for cultural aspects. We don't do nothing with it too. So I just just keep that stuff in mind while you guys move forward with your projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments. So do any of the board committee members have any questions or comments on this item? Okay, seeing none. Christine, would you like to make the motion?
Of $4 million for fiscal year 2021 and the proposed Transnet Environmental Mitigation Program fiscal year 2021-22 work plan for regional land management.
Okay, I will second that motion.
Thank you. Oh,
yeah,
sorry, are you ready for me to?
Yes.
Thank you. For the City of San Diego, Councilmember Ward.
Yes.
Thank you. For the County of San Diego, has Supervisor Gaspar come on? Yeah, I believe they're still absent. For East County, Vice Chair Alicio?
Yes.
Thank you. For North County Coastal, Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Thank you. For North County Inland, Mayor Jones?
Jones, yes.
Thank you. For South County, Chair Salas?
Salas, yes.
Thank you. Apologies, and that motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And that concludes all the business for this meeting. And so our next regional planning committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, November the 6th at 12:30 p.m. Until then, I wish you health and stay safe and have a happy Halloween. It's going to be modified, but we'll do what we have to do and we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.